I won't do a detailed review. You can get the notes online. You can follow up on that if you'd like. But the 2 points we kind of went over last week were, first of all, the foundational significance of the Sabbath was setting forth this visible reminder that God is the creator of heaven and earth. In a world full of other religions with dozens, sometimes hundreds of gods, the Sabbath was the reminder in the Old Testament that God is the God who created the heavens and the earth. That's not a guess. That's the teaching of Exodus 20, 8 through 11, and we looked at that reference. Remember the Sabbath day to keep it holy. 6 days you shall labor and do all your work. But the seventh day is a Sabbath day to the Lord your God. On it you shall do no work. You or your son or your daughter, your male servant, your female servant, or your livestock, or the sojourner who is within your gates. Why weren't they to do any work? To keep them from having a burnout? No. For in 6 days the Lord made heaven, earth, the sea, and all that is in them, and rested on the seventh. Therefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and made it holy. So the first thing the Sabbath was a reminder of was our God is the God who created the earth in 6 days. And you need 1 day out of 7 just to think about that. That you're not a fluke, you're not an accident, that there is a creator, and that means the creator dictates how life is to be lived. There are implications that just bubble out and boil over out of the truth that God is the creator of all. And it's very easy to live life as though, so we're not evolutionists, great, but it's very easy for us to live our lives planning our agenda and organizing our schedule and pursuing our goals like we were the creators of our past and the captains of our fate. And so we're to remember that, do you know how many people would avoid messing up their lives if they just stopped and said, God made me. And God knows what life is all about. And boy, do I need to remember that. And so God creates the Sabbath. That's the first thing we looked at. The second thing we looked at under that point was there was another purpose. 1 day in 7 to help turn our hearts away from the pattern of life that deadens us to an awareness of God. 1 day in 7 where our hearts are sanctified. And that comes from Exodus 31, 12 and 13. And the Lord said to Moses, you are to speak to the people of Israel and say, above all, and I made a big deal about that, above all, you shall keep my Sabbaths, plural. For this is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that you may know that I, the Lord, sanctify you. So, 1 day in 7, this is the Old Testament teaching on the Sabbath. 1 day in 7 to remind us that we have a Creator. And you'll remember that I talked quite a bit last Sunday night about consider the fact that we still have weeks. Remember that? We have days because that's how long it takes the earth to revolve on its axis. We have months because that's how long it takes the moon to orbit the earth in all of its phases. We have years because it takes a year for the earth to complete the orbit around the sun. But there is no astronomical reason for weeks. And the Encyclopedia Britannica cites the creation account in the opening chapters of Genesis as the only valid reason for the presence of weeks. So every time some atheist says, we're going to the lake in 2 weeks, he doesn't know it, but what he's saying is, there's a Creator. To remind us of the Creator. Secondly, 1 day in 7 to sanctify our hearts. It's not just a rest so that we can go back to living life on our own terms the other 6 days like we were before. It's a drawing to God so that our hearts will be sanctified so that we enter the rest of the days with changed hearts and a changed attitude.